Hey everybody, welcome to the Trailblazers podcast, where we're not actually a podcast right now, we're just recording random stuff about hockey. And today on the podcast, what we want to talk about is the Game 4 preview in the Colorado Avalanche versus the Edmonton Oilers Western Conference Final. So at this point, Edmonton is down 3-0 in the series. What are your thoughts going into Game 4, Tyler? What are you expecting to see, and what have you thought so far about the series?
I mean, yeah, like I at this point, it's do or die for Edmonton, right? They're in the worst possible spot you can be in a series. You're down 3-0. That's not to say it hasn't been done before. We've seen this. You know, we maybe get like one of these series a year, if that, maybe a little bit less, where you see a team is down 3-0 and they come back and win the series. I think way back in the day, the LA Kings were famously good at this. They were twice in one playoffs. They were down 3-0 in a series and they came back and won it. I don't as much of an Oilers fan as I am, I don't see this Oilers team quite being built like that. So they're kind of on the brink here, and it's going to take a bit of a miracle to get back into this series. You know, they dropped the first two in Colorado, which that's already putting them in a bad spot. They really needed to steal one there. And because they didn't, they really needed these two home games here in Edmonton, and they've dropped the one last night. So they're in a tough spot. That being said, I'm never, ever going to count out a team that has Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl up front. I think, what we were talking about in our last preview, that the Colorado is making them pay for mistakes, right? And they're playing good defensive hockey against them, and they're not letting them kind of utilize those high output guys up front that they have, and they're kind of exposing them on the back end, because they're an incredible hockey team, right? Like, they're just miles ahead of a lot of other teams in this league, and Edmonton's getting exposed a little bit. That being said, last night I thought that what an amazing start the Oilers could have had there. First 30 seconds, McDavid, who is had the team on his back the entire season and the playoffs, comes in and scores in the first 30 seconds, and that could have been, if you played into that right, that could have been the momentum swing in the entire series. But, you got Kane that goes and takes a stupid penalty. Smith looks a little shaky in net. So, he's been bad, but he's also been incredibly good. But I think the thing is, no matter how good a goalie's stats are, if they let in the wrong goal at the wrong time, that can change everything, right? So it's more about, the stats are important, but for a goalie, you got to be able to stop a puck when it matters, and you got to know the times when that matters, because it can change everything. And they just hit after McDavid got that first goal last night, all the bounces went wrong for them, and I think they came back a little bit, but Colorado, being the hockey team they are, ended up stealing that one last night. So they are in a tough spot, that is for damn sure. So I don't know. I don't really see a way out other than the high output guys really getting a bunch of goals, sucking Colorado into their type of game and going run and gun, because they have a chance in that, and then really shutting it down on the defensive end, and with the goaltending as well. And the Oilers' defense hasn't been that great either. I know Nurse had a couple of mistakes there the other day in the past couple of games, so you need your top-end guys on the back end to be reliable as well and be able to shut the door. So the Oilers got to figure it out, and they got to figure it out quickly. Otherwise, our prediction of Oilers in 4 last video series will come correct. They will be swept in 4 games if they don't figure this out tomorrow night. Dave, what are you thinking for the next game?
Yeah, I'm just going to reiterate what Tyler said. I mean, we never said Oilers in 4 win. We just said Oilers in 4, right? So, I mean, our prediction of Oilers in 4 being swept perhaps might occur. So just want to clarify that for the fans. Thank you very much. I think Tyler brings up a lot of good points here. Basically, even I was looking at the game sheet last night once it was all said and done. McDavid -3, Draisaitl -2, and a game 3, right? I mean, even if these guys are putting the puck in the back of the net, these guys, they can't become, defensive liabilities or be taking minuses for you at the end of the day, right? And I know McDavid's been really good in this playoff so far. I think previously one of our other videos, I was saying he's +17 at that point in the playoffs. So, I mean, McDavid, he's not a liability by any means, but also in very critical games, you got to be able to play that defensive play to make sure you're not going to be costing your team goals. Or, LA, for example, you have a guy, center for Montreal last year. I'm just not pulling the name. Super good defensive center on LA.
Good question.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I can't pull this name out of my head right now. I hope you know who I'm talking about. But basically, he was the shutdown center for against McDavid. You kind of need a center who can play very elite defensive hockey. Might not be a top offensive center, but somebody who can shut that down, right? So even if McDavid is maybe like the offensive center of Edmonton. Like Edmonton needs some guy to be basically like that shutdown guy and can oppose the McKinnon line and with Rantanen and Landeskog and whatnot, because these guys are just too good, right? I think some other things that I think about is like Colorado has basically been on the brink of being this championship team for about 3 or 4 years now. Whereas I feel like Edmonton is kind of like just in that point of their players are getting the playoff experience. They're kind of fine tuning their games. I think it's Colorado's moment. I think everybody for this entire year has been calling Colorado to make it and probably win the cup, right? Like they have such a good team, and even right now, even though they don't have their starting goalie, they're finding ways to win games even with their backup goalie, right? So I think it's just like Colorado's fine tuned. They're ready. They're primed and ready to go to basically like make this like deep cup run this year, and like this is their year, right? And I think we can't count Edmonton out, but like by all means, like they just need to play a game at a time right now. Like as Tyler pointed out, 3-0 is like the worst spot you can be in a playoff series, obviously, because there's 4 games left, and if you lose one time, you're done. But, at the same point, too, you can never count out a team that has 2 of the top 5 players in the world. These guys can drive the game, and we'll see what happens. But I would expect to hopefully see Oilers can at least take 1 game. If they can, if they don't take 1 game, it's done. But I hope that they can at least, start at home, get that game 4. Make this interesting. Take it to 5, take it to 6. Who knows, right? But yeah, they got to start simple. Just really focus on that run and gun style play if they want to win, and hopefully just stay out of penalty trouble, play the game. And if Smith can kind of make some of those critical saves at certain points, I think that would be fantastic. Tyler, I have a really quick question for you. If you're familiar with this, would you have started Koskinen by this point in the series now? Yes or no? And if so, or if not, why?
That's such a tough decision in the playoffs, too. Like, if you're a head coach and your team, you want to have confidence in your starting goalie even after they show some weakness. You want to be able to give them the opportunity to come back and have something to prove, so to speak. And I think it depends on – every goalie's a little bit different, but Mike Smith is that type of goalie where – if he lets in a couple bad ones, has a bad game, he usually comes back and proves it the next game why he's such an elite goaltender and why he's still in the league at 40 years old. So I think that's the gamble they went with. They thought he was going to shut the door, but it just didn't materialize that way. I probably would have made the right decision based on the fact that it's Mike Smith. I think, a lot of other goalies, I probably would have switched it up and thrown Koskinen in that. But that being said, Koskinen isn't that reliable either. So you're taking a gamble throwing him. That's what they did in the first game against the Flames, and then after 3 goals or whatever, they put Koskinen in, and then he got 6 goals scored on him. So he hasn't looked great in the playoffs either. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. So they have a huge goaltending problem. I think it really depends on does Mike Smith show up or not. And I think for this next game, I honestly don't know what you do. I think it's do or die. Mike Smith has a good proven track record in do or die games. Like when it matters, he can kind of calm himself down, and I think that's when he performs best. So honestly, I might go back to Mike Smith for this game 4. If I'm Edmonton, we don't really know what would happen with Koskinen. Or on the other hand, you give Koskinen the opportunity to save the series, and he might come through big. So tough decision. I don't envy Jay Woodcroft in this position. He's got to make that call, but we'll see what happens. It'll be interesting in any case. The one thing I'll add for the Oilers that I do like about them for this situation is that this is a team that really does refuse to die a lot of times. We've seen that, not in a playoff series, but in the games all year. There's some insane stats about how Oilers, other teams would score the first goal on them all the time, and they were always coming back and winning games. So they're used to playing from behind and having to kind of make up that ground, which is not a good way to play, but, that mentality, that team mentality that they have, and we've seen that a lot, the other team scoring the first goal and them coming back and winning, maybe that plays into their favor for being down in the series. I don't know if they can come back and win 4 in a row, but I wouldn't be surprised if they stole 1 or 2 in a row here before they get knocked out. But they'll need strong goaltending, which they haven't had that consistently so far. I don't know, Dave, if you're Jay Woodcroft, who are you throwing in that tomorrow night?
It's such a hard call. I would probably still go with Smith, to be honest, just because, Smith tends to, I agree with you, and I know we talked about this in multiple videos about, this during the playoffs so far. Smith tends to play really good in these adversity situations, especially if he has a bad game the game before. He's, wants to show something, and then he plays super good. I think they'll probably run with Smith, to be honest. I think it's, almost too late in the series to, go to Koskinen. If it was like Edmonton, because I think what was it, game one they switched to Koskinen and he played pretty good. If it was me, because the series was like pretty short, I think game two you could have started Koskinen. But then right, because Tyler's saying Mike Smith is bad in game one, he usually comes back in game two and is a little bit stronger. Right, I think it's almost too late in the series at this point to like make that big of a change. So I think they're gonna run with they're gonna run with Smith. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, you got to give him a shot at redemption, I guess, and hopefully that works out well. But I don't know. I think that's probably all I got ahead of Game 4. It's one of those things. I think if they win that game and win another one, then you've got a real series on your hand. But now it's just do or die. So let's see how bad the Oilers want it. They got to come out and everybody's got to be playing hard. So there's gonna be no room for laziness or bad plays or mistakes from anybody. So it's got to be a whole team effort now. It's not like McDavid can win you the rest of the series. Everybody's got to be going.
Yep.
Any final thoughts on the series, Dave?
Pretty much as you summarized it, man. The Oilers got to bring it for Game 4. Otherwise, it's going to be that sweep in 4 games, just like we had maybe suggested in our previous video title. Hopefully they can take at least this Game 4, and so we'll be able to produce another video after that. Otherwise, we'll have to produce, practical content again. So yeah, I hope you guys can win a game, and let's go.
Let's go. All right. See you guys next time. Have a good one. Enjoy the game.